In the darkness, we were made. The Dark Angels, the first of the Emperor's legions, keepers of many secrets. I am Ezekiel, Grand Master of Librarians, bearer of the Book of Salvation. I have crossed the Rubicon Primaris and now wear the enhanced Mark X Phobos armor. I can now aid my chapter in the hunt for the fallen and more easily enact surgical strikes against our foes. I seek out enemy leaders and strike from the shadows with the mighty force weapon Traitor's Bane. I empower the blade with my will!
Hey Dave, what's that glowy thing over there? I'm not sure, Larry. It looks a bit like a sword.
Slay the Space Marine! Oh, not again. Don't worry, I'm not going to give up my day job to produce very badly animated Warhammer intros, especially without a lot more camera equipment. Hope you enjoyed it though, it was fun to make, and I just wanted to put something cool at the beginning of the video. Hopefully that ticks at least one of those two boxes. Today we're going to paint the Molten Power Sword, the Force Sword that I've done for this Ezekiel conversion, and it's actually really simple. What I'm going to do is going to start off with some glazes. If you've seen my video on how to paint Dracnien over on Patreon, then you'll know a lot about those already. If you haven't, it is open to all Patreons regardless of level, so even someone just a supporter tier can watch that video, because glazing is really important to get right, and I honestly think that everyone should watch that video. But like I said, if you've seen that one, this one, at the beginning at least, you'll kind of be familiar with. What we're going to do is we're going to start off with a dark red, work up to a bright off-white bone. We're then going to start adding in the kind of cracked surface of that molten sword. And I promise you, the entire technique is actually kind of simple. Let's get to it. First thing you need to do is prepare your palette. Same with everything else, get a good foundation and the rest will be fine. Get some Framar black, some Khador red base, some Flash Kits yellow, and some Menoth white highlight on your palette, because these are the colors we're going to use across the entirety of the blade. Also, don't forget to get some clean water, and my advice is always to get one of these little dropper bottles and just a bit of dispense that onto your palette every time you need it. Mix some black and some red together, and then you'll start getting your base coats down on the blade. Give the entire blade a coat of this along its entire length. You might need a couple to get full opacity, and then we can start the blending process from there. So let's go through the blends then. All we're going to do is add a little bit of red into our black, and we're going to just progressively but slowly work up till we're using almost pure red. It's going to take several passes to get there because we don't want a stop-start set of colors. We want everything to flow nicely one into the other. We're also going to be concentrating towards the top end of the blade to ensure that that area is the hottest point. The rest of it is going to be covered up by our sort of crust forming on the blade. So the last thing we want to do is spend a load of time down there, which we're already then going to end up painting over with black. So add a small amount of red into the mix at a time. Make sure your paint is nice and thin because you've got lots of layers going on. And as you can see here, I'm also doing it on things like the little sigils on the sword. If you've got a sword with any kind of decoration like this, then that's the thing to do as well. We're only going to do it in this one example here because hopefully the rest of what you can see will be enough to help show you exactly what you need to do in those sorts of instances anyway. And in the interest of not making the video last about 45 minutes or so, I chose to just sort of cut those bits out. This is the point now. This is our third highlight, and we're going on with now just pure red. So you can see it's taken a while to get there, and those progressions are relatively smooth. Now when you're making all of these colors up on your palette, do ensure you leave some of the previous color to fix any mistakes that may come up during the painting process. So now I'm going to speed the video up a little bit because everything you're about to see is kind of the same coat of paint, just a little bit less and a little bit more towards yellow. You just see it on the palette. We've added in some yellow to get us towards orange. This is great. This is exactly what we want to do. We need to go from red through orange, ideally quickly, to get into that nice bright yellow that we really want. We want to get that warmth coming out of the blade. So the most important things to note when you're doing this kind of thing is to keep your paint nice and thin. Brush control is mostly actually about paint consistency. This is something that most people don't tell you. I don't know if they really realize it. So make sure your paint is thick enough that when you put your paintbrush into it, it doesn't fill up your paintbrush and distend the bristles to this like big lump of them, but thin enough so when you dip your paintbrush in it, the paint flows up easily into the body of your brush. Now for a lot of what we're doing here, we're laying down a coat of paint that goes progressively building more and more yellow into it, up to the point where we then start building in some of that melted white highlight, that bright off-white bone color, and really getting our heat coming on. But then also interspersed throughout this, we're taking a glaze like you can see here, where we're taking some red and we're just helping to sort of push out a little bit of the color that we've put down. This helps us to give a effect of something that is very warm, and the red helps temper our orange and temper our yellows to ensure that what we've got at the end of it still is very cohesive. There's no sudden start-stop points in our blend. You don't see one color and then another color and then another color. You get something that is a little bit more of a smooth transitional blend. Glazing is super simple. All we're doing in this case is we are taking some of that color that we've already used, one of those red blends, the red-black mix in some cases, the bright red in some cases. We're adding just enough water to that so that if we were to take it and just paint it on a nail, we're able to see right the way through, and there's going to be no like tide mark around it. The most important thing to know about glazing though is you only put a very small amount of paint in your brush at a time and don't flood the area. Okay, so the next part is going to take a little bit of courage if you're someone that's never done something like this before. And that's fine. Honestly, you put yourself out your comfort zone every now and again, and it's a good thing to do. What you're going to need to do is you need to take some black paint and you need to paint over the majority of the blade. Not all of it, obviously, goes without saying, but paint over almost all of the blade towards the hilt. And then as you get further up towards the areas where we've applied our very bright coats of paint, start bringing it back from there. You want to make sure that there's some crust, we'll say, some surface material on those areas to help sell the effect, but you don't want to overdo it. We've got that little area we've kept in the middle of the blade as that little eruption of lava on our molten blade, and we want to make sure that we have a nice little area around that of this crust. So let's get to that. So we're going to take some Thramar black, and we've painted quite a lot of this on already. What you're going to do is make sure your paint is nice and thin and start just cutting in around the edges. It's easier to just add a little at a time and go back and add a bit more later on if you feel like you need to, than to put too much on in one go and realize, hang on, I've made a mistake and have to try and correct all that. Once you're happy with the amount of it on the blade though, start adding in a couple of little dots. This is going to be like some floating crust on the lava of the blade, and then once they're down, just start joining those up. It's only really once you've got all of this done that you can start to work out whether you've got enough by way of the sort of crust around the blade. And so if you feel at that point I need to go more like I did here, go back and just add in some more. That's exactly the right thing to do. If you went and did this beforehand and realized actually that's too much, now you'd be stuck trying to glaze all of that out with reds and yellows. Next up, we're highlighting it. I've added some Melloth white highlight into our mix, and we'll add in some more for another highlight later on, and just hit some of the edges and paint a few cracks on the blade itself. You don't want to overdo it, otherwise you end up with a grey blade, but make sure you hit the absolute edges of the blade and just get the shape right. So while I'm getting these highlights down, I'll have a quick chat with you about the other content that I produce. On YouTube, we put up 2 videos a week, so why don't you do this, hit the bell button, you'll be notified about all of that going live. That way you won't miss any of it. Also, if you're liking this video, why not give it a cheeky thumbs up to say that you like it. If you really like it, leave a comment below. If you don't like it, I'd love it if you left a comment below so that I can see where I need to improve. Also, we have content we put up on Patreon every single week as a written guide to one of the things that we've done, and every other week we put up a video tutorial exactly like this one, so you can go and check those out too. Not to mention, we also stream 4 nights a week on Twitch, Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday in the evenings from 9 PM and Saturdays in the morning from 11 AM, all times in BST. Links in the description below. We can come and watch the videos, you can go and watch the streams, ask questions and get answers in real time, and really help me help you improve your painting. Hopefully, we'll see you in the streams. And that's it, guys. It's literally that simple. Some of these techniques will require a little bit of practice, that's quite clear. So don't be disheartened if the first time you give this a go, it doesn't quite work out how you want. But really think about where you may have gone wrong. Is it your glazes? Is it your blends? Is it you've put on too much or too little of the black paint? You can just work it out from there. Like I said earlier on, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I enjoyed making it. I even enjoyed making the rather silly animation at the start. Let me know how you thought about that. Put some comments in if you did or didn't like the intro. I'm kind of expecting that to be 50-50, to be honest. Anyway, we'll see you in the next video, guys. Peace out.